Hello, I'm Zachary Klinedinst, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the EMMAUS Trauma Model. The EMMAUS model was developed out of Luke chapter 24. Specifically, we understand the followers of Jesus who, after his crucifixion, were on the road to Emmaus. This chapter is a beautiful portrait of what effective trauma care can look like. We understand, using the word trauma, we're talking about how an individual experiences and perceives a specific situation, whether that be physical, emotional, spiritual. And ultimately, effective care then means entering into that experience with them, being present with them, to provide care both from a physical, a social, an emotional, and a spiritual paradigm. Using the word Emmaus, we have broken that down into an acronym, with each letter representing a specific facet of effective trauma care. Each letter representing what it means as a pastor to be able to provide effective care for the members of your church or your community. First, the letter E representing engage. Finally, then to mobilize, to minister, to assimilate, understanding. Finally, that final letter S for support and self-care. In this video, we will be focusing on support and self-care. We'll be looking at this through three specific areas. One, developing support systems within your church during crisis. Second, direct pastoral support. And finally, pastoral self-care. Going back to that first lens, we looked at developing support systems during crisis. This naturally within your church can already be happening. If there are specific departments in your church, whether it's children's ministry or youth ministry, many other departments and areas of our church that we have subgrouped and organized, using those departments, those support systems, you can then begin to create the framework of using the Emmaus model. This can mean working together with specific leaders in your church. Maybe if you have numerous licensed ministers or lay ministers within your church, those who may be over, say, the children's department or the youth ministry, connecting with them and through intentional means, being able to provide a structure for support within the church body. Our churches already do this so well. As a pastor, there is tremendous means then of being able to use the support, the structure that's already within your church to provide the care from the Emmaus model. There can also be an opportunity of utilizing specific groups, specific care groups, per se, where you can utilize the principles provided within the Emmaus model of working directly with those who may be the most impacted during times of crisis. You can create groups maybe of those, whether it's formal or even if it's informal and it's only maybe for you or for other ministers or lay ministers in your church, individuals to provide direct care. You can organize them by those who need specific support during times like this. Those who have been directly impacted by a crisis or directly experienced some level of trauma, as so many have. As we then look through how that support can look, support can come just by being present, just being there, being that pastor, that voice. Also just calling on the phone, creating a support system for an individual to belong. That is the beautiful lens that our churches provide, of creating an opportunity for community. People within your church who are looking for hope and are looking for purpose, are looking for answers during times of crisis and after experiencing traumatic events, your church can be the avenue for that support by these systems that may already be in place at your church. The next is direct pastoral support. As a pastor, you are the shepherd. You directly work and impact the lives of those who are a part of your church, in your community. Direct pastoral support can come in two specific means. One, in spiritual support and care, and second, in emotional and social support and care. From the emotional and social side of things, we understand that the EMMAUS model provides a beautiful lens of how that care can look, of being there, being present. As I've mentioned before, being that support that's right there for them. Maybe it's through a phone call, or it's being there and checking in on them. As a pastor, it can come through preaching a specific word that you feel like God has given you. Or it could be just those moments of thinking about them, contacting them, looking and seeing how, as a pastor, you can be present with them even during times of crisis and trauma. That emotional support, whether it be for depression, anxiety, fear, hopelessness. It can come by means of leaning on the Word of God through spiritual support. As we understand that you're a pastor, and as we look through all the portraits of the EMMAUS model, it can feel overwhelming of, am I supposed to remember all of this? And what do I say during this specific time? The beauty is that providing support is not always saying the right thing. Most of the time, it's not even saying anything. It's being there. It's being that shoulder that they can lean on. It's being present to hear and to listen to their heart's cries. It's being there as a shepherd when they need that sense of security, of strength, of awareness, even if you don't feel it in yourself at all. The beauty of pastoral support comes from, yes, being a pastor, being a leader, of emotionally being present, physically being there as much as you can to listen to their cries, to listen to their concerns. With depression, it could be there to provide hope, to provide encouragement, to provide an awareness that God is with them. With anxiety and fear being the present sense of that strong emotion in the moment, and anxiety being that anticipation of something to come, or the concern about something that has happened. So anxiety and fear being there to be that peace in the midst of the storm. As a pastor, providing emotional and social care during these kinds of situations of crisis and trauma, whether it be with anxiety of what's going to happen tomorrow, in fear of what's presently happening today. That still voice of a shepherd can be there to calm, to bring peace, to bring understanding. Finally, when we look at hopelessness, concern, during times where there is trauma, there is crisis, so many look to their own selves and wonder, is this worth it? Are they living a life truly that has purpose, has meaning? Or what they're investing their time or their resources in, is it really all for naught? Is there anything of value? As a pastor, you have that opportunity of being able to be there as a sense of support, of being able to be there in those times of questioning what's real, what has meaning and has value and has purpose that's going to last beyond this crisis and this trauma. As a pastor, you have the opportunity, both from a spiritual lens of bringing in the Word of God, that God is our rock. He's our shepherd. He truly is that foundation, that strong tower that we can run to. You have the opportunity as a pastor by providing that direct support, of being there, that shoulder that they can lean on. Finally, the final portion is pastoral self-care. Ultimately, during times of crisis and trauma, there is a temptation of running 0 to 100, getting little sleep, working long hours. There are many people who lean on you, who rely on you, who are contacting you and calling you and looking for the support that we've mentioned already. But the reality is that as a pastor, as a leader, as someone who's providing support to so many, the reality is that you can only pour out what you've poured in and invested in yourself. We understand the effects of getting little sleep, eating little, working long hours, the emotional, physical, and spiritual drain that can result in. During times like this of crisis and trauma, it is critical and paramount that you invest in yourself and in your family. This can take many shapes and many forms, whether it's taking a specific day of Sabbath and having a day of rest and trying your best during times like that to just be with your family and maybe turn off the phone and don't yield phone calls unless there are specific emergencies. Maybe that's not possible for you. During situations like that, then it could be of setting aside a specific time of the day, a specific hour maybe, to rest, to allow yourself emotionally and mentally to unwind. It can be that ability to just take a step back and care for yourself. We even find this portrait in the life of Jesus, who we find him many times drew himself away from the crowd and prayed. He would go and he would take those moments. It was there that self-care was taking place. In order to pour out and invest and provide support for those in our church, we've got to be able to provide support for ourselves. We've got to invest in ourselves. This can come maybe through staying in contact with fellow ministers, fellow pastors, being there to vocalize your concerns, the struggles you have, having that trusted voice of a friend or of a fellow pastor who you can lean on. It could also mean just taking time for yourself and for your family. Pastoral self-care is vitally important during times of crisis and trauma. Because again, as I've already said, we as caregivers can only pour out what we've invested in ourselves. And during times of crisis and times of trauma, it can be tempting to, the need is large. There are so many who need you. There's so many who need the support that you can provide. But that can only be done if you are healthy, if you are there and you are strong to provide that support. The EMMAUS model, again, is a beautiful model of providing effective trauma care through the lens of Luke 24. And so as you continue to do the work of God, as you continue to provide care for the members of your community, of your church, it can be done so practically from the support already in your church, the structure, the systems that may already be in place. It can be done from direct pastoral support, from your voice of being there, being present, of being there to listen to their concerns and their cries, their doubts, their feelings of anxiety, or their feelings of fear and hopelessness. But it also comes down to taking care of yourself, allowing yourself to have your own sense of self-care, allowing yourself that time to invest in yourself as a pastor, to pour out to the members of your community. I pray that as you continue to go forth in providing effective care, that God will bless your church, that he'd bless you and use you for the purpose that God has in your life and in your community. God bless you.